Hatstack Mike here, talking about Sonic the Hedgehog once again because that's what I do. In this video I'll be talking all about Sonic's universe because what exactly is Sonic's world? It seems to be kind of inconsistent from game to game, and I've seen a lot of people online call that out. And I mean, yeah, Sonic games can often look like they're from completely different universes when placed side by side. So I'll be looking at where the mainline Sonic games take place and see if I can kind of tie it all together and make sense of it. So let's see if I can answer this video title's question of, what is Sonic's world? So let's start off with the first game in the series, Sonic 1. The entirety of this game actually takes place at a location known as South Island. It's where the infamous Green Hill Zone is, so every time Sonic keeps coming back to this place, theoretically he's coming back to this remote island again and again. I know it's completely for nostalgic reasons, but still, it's kind of weird when you think about it like that. The name South Island even gets referenced in Sonic Pocket Adventure with Neo's South Island Zone, so that's kinda cool. But yeah, the fact that this is a remote island and not a well-populated place kinda makes sense that, other than Sonic's animal friends that you save, the only characters you really see are Sonic and Eggman. I'm sure it was actually for the technical limitations of the Genesis, but still, there's a good explanation for it. Regardless of location though, this first game establishes that there are weird, surreal environments that you wouldn't really see in real life. And that's important because this establishes Sonic's world. In Sonic's world, you'll see checkerboard ground patterns and little pieces of ground floating in the sky to use as platforms. Among other stuff like bumpers floating in the sky and cool stuff like that. So yeah, that's Sonic 1. Moving on to the next game chronologically is Sonic CD. And this game actually takes place in its own enclosed location as well, but this time it's a whole separate planet. Sonic CD takes place on Little Planet, which mysteriously shows up above Never Lake once every year. Little Planet has its own set of magical gems called Time Stones. So 2 games in, we already have 2 sets of magical jewels, but that's a whole other topic. So yeah, Eggman comes to Little Planet to go after the Time Stones, and Sonic chases after him. And again, not a heavily populated place, but Amy's here now. And once again, the locations are filled with crazy, surreal environments, and I just love the aesthetics in this game. So 2 games in, and yeah, you get a pretty good idea of what locations in Sonic's universe look like. Next up, of course, is Sonic 2, and just like Sonic 1, the vast majority of this game takes place in a distant, remote island. Up until you're in the sky chasing after the Death Egg, anyway. Sonic 2 takes place on West Side Island. Yeah, south, west. Those developers sure do love their locations. But anyway, same deal as the last 2 games here. There's all kinds of crazy, surreal environments all over, and as always, I just love how they look. The Death Egg, other than being a very obvious parody of the Death Star from Star Wars, also shows something that you wouldn't really see in real life, at least not made by one random mad genius anyway. And now we get to my favorite game, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Not really too much to say here because guess what? The vast majority of the game takes place on a distant, remote island. That's right, this time you're on the floating Angel Island, where Knuckles resides. Yay, Knuckles! Depending on the zone, the environments look a bit more realistic this time, although not really realistic, you know, but not crazy surreal either, with a few exceptions. So yeah, other than the maybe slightly more realistic look to it, Sonic 3 and Knuckles just helps further establish the aesthetics of the Sonic universe. So that covers the mainline classic games, and yeah, you'll notice that they all kind of take place in their own separate locations. So when Sonic Adventure came around, suddenly we see Sonic and his friends in these populated cities with humans walking around, and it's just like, what? Oh man, I remember in the late 90s, in the early days of the Sonic fan community, people were pissed about this online. They were saying that Sonic and his friends walking around with realistic looking humans all over the place just ruined it. And of course, I use the term realistic pretty loosely here, but keep in mind this was the late 90s. Anyway, as I pointed out, the classic games all take place on these remote islands or a different planet. So the way I see it, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 take place in actual cities, populated by people. And with some obvious differences, Sonic's Earth is a lot like ours, just with, you know, talking animals running around. Of course, that Sonic charm is still here because, for better or for worse, you wouldn't really see roads like you do in Speed Highway in real life. So to sum it up, in Sonic's world there are cities populated with people and everything just like in real life Earth, but also there are islands and different planets with crazy surreal environments also within this universe. I also wanted to mention the Sonic Advance trilogy really quick because the aesthetics of these games kind of look like a hybrid between classic and modern, and I just love how they look. Like, you'll see a somewhat realistic looking city, but with crazy checkerboard patterns all over. I just really like how it looks. And they definitely fit in well with the established look of the Sonic universe. Moving on, Sonic Heroes kind of takes place all over the place, I don't know, but the environments definitely fit in with the established look of previous Sonic games. Lots of crazy surreal environments here, but these could take place on different remote islands, I don't know. Sonic 2006 definitely goes more on the realistic side, kind of in an uncanny way. But yeah, not really much to say here, just Soleon is another place that exists in the Sonic universe. Now Sonic Unleashed really throws a wrench in the whole established universe of Sonic. Now suddenly Sonic's Earth is filled with continents, each with their own different name. And that raises so many questions. Which continent is Station Square supposed to be in? Or Mystic Ruins, or all the different locations? I mean, I can definitely see what they're going for with this, because Sonic Unleashed is meant to feel like a trip around the world and a globetrotting adventure, and I get it. But again, it just kind of seems to be a huge retcon for Sonic's world. But anyway, with that out of the way, the environments themselves in Sonic Unleashed do seem to fit in with what's been established in the Sonic Adventure games, with kind of realistic environments, but you know, not really realistic, with that Sonic charm to them. And now we get into the Sonic Riders games, and oh man, this is where things take a turn. Suddenly everything's all futuristic and there's hover cars everywhere and everyone's suddenly obsessed with hoverboards, and to my knowledge there's not really any explanation for it, it's just what the universe is like in these games. But it's just hard to imagine that these two locations are in the same universe. Yeah, I don't know, it's just straight up the Jetsons now. I mean really, I think the whole reason for the futuristic look is just because the designers wanted to do it. And that's cool and all, but just damn is it inconsistent. So I mean, I don't know what else to say. Apparently hoverboards and flying cars are just a normal thing in the Sonic universe after all. I guess. I'll just quickly go over these next few because there's really not too much else to add at this point. Sonic Colors takes place on different planets with crazy environments, but Sonic CD already established that there are different planets out there with crazy surreal environments. So yeah. Sonic Generations takes place entirely in established locations, so nothing new there. And Sonic Forces takes place in the toilet because it's crap! Sonic Frontiers does kind of try and tie everything together with all of its references, and I appreciate it for that. And this game all takes place on the Starfall Islands, so I thought it was cool how they had a Sonic game all take place on islands again. Although I will say that the environments in Sonic Frontiers look way more realistic than any Sonic game before it. And people will have their own opinion on this, but I think it's kind of a bad thing, because other than seeing rings and springs around, it has none of that Sonic charm to it. Not really much to say about Sonic Superstars, but it did give us a new direction. This game takes place on the North Star Islands. So now we got South, West, and North. We just need East. We just need East. So I think that covers most of the essential Sonic games when it comes to Sonic's universe. Obviously there are lots and lots of spin-offs out there, but I'm not going to dive down that rabbit hole for this video. I'm sorry, I'm just not going to try and explain how Sonic Schoolhouse ties into all of this, you'll have to forgive me. So that's kind of where we're at with the hodgepodge of what Sonic's world is supposed to be. At least concerning the games. I'm not even going to be touching the comics or cartoons or anything like that. Yeah, it's kind of all over the place with different islands and different planets, all with their own look to them. And those locations that are more grounded in reality, kind of. What's your take on Sonic's world? Do you prefer the more out there, surreal environments like in the classic games, or do you like the more realistic settings like in Sonic Adventure? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a hat-stackin' good day.